This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to this week's show. We're going to talk about creativity this week. It's one that when I'm out there giving my speeches and talks, I always do this kind of, not scientific poll of the audience. And I ask how many people in the audience think of themselves as being highly creative. So I'm asking you the same question. Do you think of yourself as being highly creative? The ability to kind of tap into that inner, I don't know what you want to call it, that muse that lets you come up with the ideas when you need them. Now, I'm sure some of you would consider yourself highly creative. You've been in the innovation game. It's part of your job. But most do not see themselves as highly creative. Back in the summer, I gave a speech to this event, which was made up of people who run maker spaces. So these are those warehouse places where they have all kinds of machines. You can go in there and build things. You can use a CNC machine, a lathe, laser cutters. And it's really designed for those that want to create, the do-it-yourselfer types. And in that speech that I gave, now this is a community of creatives, but what I quoted was a recent study at that time, an Adobe study, that pointed out that 75% of the U.S. population do not think of themselves as creative. That's right, 75% do not think of themselves as creative. That leaves only 25% of us to pick up and carry the creative economy that is now emerging. This creative economy, which is based on the value of ideas, the ability to continuously come up with new ideas. Why are some companies like Apple and Google and Tesla and SpaceX, why are they valued so much higher than companies that are peers? Because there's this expectation that they are highly creative today and that they must have some magic, some process, some ability to continue to fill that idea pipeline. So it's important that we all think of ourselves as being highly creative. That ability to kind of just tap that muse when we need it. Now let me let you in on a little secret. We are all born creative. We are. We all are naturally creative. If you've got kids, or in my case, I have 5 grandkids now, and I'm just amazed watching my grandkids, doing imaginary play. I have one grandson who is big into all the Pixar movies, whether it's planes or cars or whatever, and he gets his little cars, those little planes out, and he plays all the voices, and he makes up scenes, and they interact with each other. Just unbounded imagination. Now, if we're all born creative, what happens? Where does it go? Do we just magically lose it? Well, no, the reality is that we actually talk ourselves out of that creative. We've seen we watch other people be creative or attempt to be creative and it not work out. They think of themselves as an artist, but their art isn't something that kind of tickles your fancy, or they are a singer, and when they sing off key, and you kind of cringe. And so you see these other people who step out and want to be creative, and then you see them kind of not really fully execute, and we tend to be critical of that. That then triggers our own negative thoughts of, I'm not going to try that because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be out there, embarrassing myself or whatever. And so we tend to hold it back. And creativity is like anything else. If you don't use it, then it actually atrophies. It actually becomes less available to you. It's kind of like a machine that hasn't been used in a while, right? You got that lawnmower, you don't really take care of it. You stuff it into the garage for the winter. Then in the spring, you go out and you go to pull on the cord and you just keep your fingers crossed that the lawnmower is going to start. And it may start, but it's spewing out blue smoke and it sounds really rough and it's really not going. And it took you, 10 pulls to get it going. And that's kind of like your creativity. versus that machine that you take care of. You make sure that it's well oiled, it's well taken care of, you run it regularly. You go out there with those machines, one pull on the cord, it starts up and it runs great, runs really smooth. And that's, again, another example of, or another model of how to think about creativity. If you don't use it, you're that machine that's hard to start and kind of jumbles and rattles, versus if you use it all the time and you fire up that machine, it's like using that creativity on a regular basis. It'll start up, it'll be there for you, you can take advantage of it. And so the one question I have for you is, when's the last time you ran that machine? If you think of creativity as a machine, when's the last time you've run it? And do you keep it in tip-top shape? Now, I'm willing to bet it's not as good a shape as you would like it. Even if you are that individual that has been highly involved in the innovation game, you've been out there coming up with new ideas for your company and building prototypes and convincing senior management to go forward with your ideas. But let's face it, none of us are in perfect shape. It's kind of like our physical bodies, right? We could all spend a few more hours in the gym. We could all spend maybe a few less minutes at the dessert table. That creativity is something that we have to take care of. And so therefore, you don't have to get really in the tip-top shape. You don't have to wait until, you're Arnold Schwarzenegger in the gym with bulging muscles and, ready to go become Mr. Universe. There are out there a few little tricks, tools that you can bring to the table that kind of help you get your engine started, and actually help you start experiencing, getting a little more exercise, stretching that creativity a little bit more, such that when you do need it on demand, you can pull out these little tools and tricks and processes to really make it much easier for you to apply the creativity. And let's face it, creativity is critical to your career success, it's career to your personal life, and it's critical to the businesses that you work for. And if you go out and you talk to CEOs, there was a recent study, and I'm going to try to remember the year on it, but it's not coming to me right now. But a couple of years ago, there was this study done where they went out and they talked to a bunch of CEOs, and they asked the CEOs, what skill sets are most important in the hiring process for you? What's the thing that you're looking for today? And this was like 18 months or 2 years ago. What was the most important skill that you are hiring for? You know what number one was? Creativity. They're not interested in hiring somebody that's got 30 years experience coming in who's just going to apply that same old kind of thinking, who's not willing to try something new, not willing to risk. So for a CEO, if a CEO thinks that creativity is the number one skill they hire for, then it must be pretty important for all of us looking for jobs, looking to advance our careers, looking to have more satisfaction in life, is to recognize that creativity is not an option or wish I had. It's a skill you need, and it's a skill you need to become proficient at if you are going to be successful. And let me tell you, it feeds into self-satisfaction too. If I look back on my career, when I've come up with an idea and then saw it all the way through, saw it become a product, and then I could walk in to a store and point to that product and say, I did that and I kicked butt. There has been nothing better. Well, I shouldn't say nothing better. Marrying my wife and having my kids and my grandkids. Those rank top of my list. But seeing my own personal creativity lead to something that customers in turn see value and are willing to part money with. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than using your creativity to solve a problem, whether it be for your nonprofit, in your family, right? It's the renewal or the recognition of our human nature, our natural human ability. And so the it's no longer a question of, well, I don't have it and somebody else does. You need it. You need to have it. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of this show talking about how to find that thing inside of you and use it to advance whatever it is that's in front of you. Problems, opportunities, whatever it is, how to apply it. So we're going to share with you what are the few tricks you can apply immediately that will have impact on your creativity. And we're going to share that right after this break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
There's a famous quote from Earl Nightingale that says, "There is a gold mine between your ears." The human mind is amazing. Right? It collects and stores both visual information, audio information, emotions, experiences, and it all weaves it together as part of our memory. Now, what I find really amazing is the ability for the mind to fill in gaps. So, for me, I read a lot. And when I'm reading a story, have you ever done this when you're reading a story and you're trying to visualize what that scene looks like? You hear the person's voice and the dialogue of a story, and you're trying to paint a picture of what they look like. Do they have a big nose? Do they have lots of hair? Do they walk funny? Do they, what is it? How do you create that image in your mind of the scene that is in front of you? And it's amazing because you can be reading a book and you don't consciously think about what does the scene look like. As you're reading the book, that scene is getting built into your mind. And whatever is not described in the book, your mind is filling in. And it's filling in based on your own visual, auditory experiences, your own emotions. And really, it's the thing that creates that picture in the mind. Now, in your mind, there are literally thousands of ideas rattling around. We just don't know it. We haven't been aware of the ideas to be able to pluck them out, look at them, evaluate them, put them back in, pick the next one out, look at it, evaluate it, and pick the ones that we want to execute on. In some cases, these ideas are hidden. They're little fragments, of experiences. They're little fragments of things that we maybe annoyances that just haven't raised to the point of becoming painful. So therefore, we're going to come up with a solution. In some cases, we just need that jolt that shakes us awake, something that causes us to see a connection that we had never before seen. In this case, your mind is your most valuable asset. Just as Earl Nightingale said, it's a gold mine. You literally have thousands of ideas. It's like walking out into a field and just having the gold lay out in the field in front of you, and you're able to go pick that up. But you got to recognize it. You got to recognize that it's gold and to know to pick that up. And so in some cases, it's being able to pre-populate our mind so we know what to look for and what to recognize. So the question I have for you is, what do you do to take care of it? If your mind is a gold mine, like Earl Nightingale says, and you literally have thousands of ideas, what do you do for your mind to take care of it? Now, your body, you may go down and lift some weights, go on the treadmill, to build up your physical muscles. What are you doing to take care of your mind? Do you think about brain nutrition? Certain vitamins, certain supplements, certain foods can be both helpful and hurtful to the mind. Now, I guess I'm not a crazy over the top on supplements, etc. My wife, however, is a nurse, and she reads up on a lot of research around which supplements to take, which supplements are good for you. She's got a little bit of history of senior onset dementia, so she worries about that, becoming part of her DNA. So she spends a lot of time researching what supplements, what's to eat, what things not to eat, etc. So I would encourage you to think about it. Think about the kind of foods you eat. I've recently have gone completely off of sugar. I had a doctor who pointed me to a YouTube video that kind of just changed my whole perspective on sugar. And so I'm completely off of sugar. I used to drink lots of sugary drinks. For those of you who've known me for a long time, if you've seen me on stage, I used to have cans of this stuff on stage on the speaker podiums when I was doing my keynotes and that. Not anymore. I'm now down to water or flavored water that's 0 calories, 0 sweeteners, but that's my choice. The other is exercise. You find that cardiovascular exercise that gets the heart rate up, actually has a positive impact on your brain, your mind, your thinking. If it's truly worthwhile for for your that the brain is most valuable to you, then do some exercise. The other thing is what do you fill it up with? What do you fill it up with? Are you watching a lot of TV, a lot of movies? Do you read a lot? Do you do puzzles, mental exercises? What are you exercising and using your brain with? Now, in my case, I'm a big reader. In my car, I have about a 40-minute commute every morning to my office. Perfect time to either do a book on tape or do a podcast, listening to a podcast. But at night, I tend to read real books. Yes, books that are actually printed on paper, holding in my hand, and therefore it takes a whole different approach. What they have found is when you actually physically hold a book in your hand, your brain actually has much better retention than doing an audiobook, which is even then higher than a e-reader book. For some reason, the e-reader books, our mind flips into scanning mode rather than read the text mode. And they've done these tests on retention. So paper's best, audio is second, ebook is third. And for me, reading is critical. There's a recent study that says that if a person has read one book a month for the last year, their salary is significantly higher than those who don't read at all. Who don't read, I'm not talking about just light reading of newspapers and online stuff. Sitting down, reading a book. If you read one book a month, it's proven that those people have a significantly higher salary than those that don't. And so, what do you fill your mind up with? I still have a bad habit. I like to watch, there's certain shows I like, I watch movies, whatever. And I'm trying to get myself back into the habit myself on reading more, spending more time in reading physical, hard books. It also gets me away from screen time. Shut down all my screens, my phones, my tablets, my TVs, everything. Spend that time reading as I'm kind of wrapping up my day. It kind of helps shift my gears to get better sleep. And that's another trick I use to actually pick up and feed that brain, because what's in the brain becomes the connections that lead to those thousands of ideas. So we're just partway through. I've got more tricks, more insights on how to improve your personal creativity. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
One of the tricks for personal creativity for me is I've reworked a lot on refining my skill of observation. The ability to see with what I call new eyes. Not just eyes, not just being able to say that that wall is white and the chair is brown and my desk here is messy. It's really about using fresh eyes, new eyes that kind of ignore the pattern of seeing the same thing over and over again and seeing it as if you were seeing it for the first time. The key with observation is this ability to associate different observations. Seeing it with new eyes, seeing as if you're seeing it for the first time, and then recognizing when something isn't just quite right. Now, the key for an innovator is an innovator doesn't just see problems. An innovator sees problems that others don't see. So observation from a creativity perspective is critical. Comfort and familiarity are the enemy, right? We all get comfortable. We all do the same thing. We all drive the same way to work every morning. We all walk in the same door, park generally in the same spot, go up the same set of stairs, go to our desk, do the same patterns every morning. In my case, plug in my laptop while it's booting up, grab my cup, go to the kitchen, get my drink, come back. By the time I'm back, everything's up, I'm running. Sit down at my desk and start my day. But the pattern is the exact same. How many of you drive the exact same way to work every day or 90% of the time, right? How many of us have, and we go to some location like church on Sunday and you sit in the exact same part of church every day? You go to a grocery store and you park in the same general lot area. You go to a movie theater, you always want to sit in a certain set of seats. We have these natural patterns that just kind of built up, and it's that comfort and familiarity that are the enemy, because we can't see with fresh eyes. So sometimes I'll pick and I'll go a completely different direction, go down a set of roads I've never been on before. Now, in cases when it's my wife and I out and driving, I tend to do most of the driving. But every once in a while, I'll have her drive, because now I'm in the passenger seat. The view's completely different. I'm not having to pay attention. I can see buildings and signs and changes. We were just out not too long ago driving around, and I was in the passenger seat because she picked me up someplace. We were only going a couple miles to a restaurant, and we were going down a road that I'd been down 1,000 times. But all of a sudden, I noticed a building that I had never realized had been built, because it sat back a little bit. It was a little hidden, and you kind of had to be looking straight out the window to see it. And I was shocked. I'm like, where did that building come from? And my wife just thought it was hilarious. She's like, that building's been under construction for 6 months. What do you mean you just noticed it? I noticed it because I had changed my perspective. And we all need to change our perspectives. The same applies to our jobs, the work that we do every day. We all kind of get into the groove of our jobs, of doing it, the way we do it. We've had our responsibilities. We've worked in a core competency or capability. Have you ever thought about maybe swapping jobs with somebody for a week or a month? The best mentoring experience I ever had in my entire career was when my first job out of school, hired by Bob Davis. And if you've been a listener to this podcast or radio show from the beginning, you've heard the story about Bob. He was my first mentor, and I ended up going to 3 companies with him. But when Bob brought me in as part of my onboarding and orientation, and we talked about my long-term career success. I was a software engineer by training, right? Hardcore, crank that code, right? I was primarily a C and an assembler programmer. And so, my thought was, I'm just going to become just a better and better, programmer. And Bob sat me down and goes, whoa. Do you want to be a programmer or do you really want to be an entrepreneur? Do you really want to start something? Do you want to build product that other people find immensely valuable? Of course, for me, that's when I said code, that what I really meant was I want to build product. I want to build new things that have never existed before that customers will find valuable. And so what did he do? He put me on a rotation. Well, I spent 6 months in finance. I spent 6 months in sales. I spent 6 months in the IT department. I spent 6 months in marketing, right? So I basically did every job function. This was a division of Prentice Hall Publishing that I worked for right out of school. And let me tell you, talk about looking at fresh eyes, because every time I got moved into sales, I carried a sales quota. I'd never been a sales guy. I didn't know the first thing about sales. So I had to learn it. But by putting me in those uncomfortable positions where I had to look at it with fresh eyes and pick it up quickly and figure out the patterns that apply to sales versus the patterns to marketing, that gave me such an unbelievable foundation that was so valuable for the rest of my career. And so I ask you about your ability of observation. Have you been doing the same thing for so long that everything is just familiar and you're comfortable with it? Because if so, there's a problem. The skill of observation is critical for your personal creativity. So what is it you can do? How do you maybe tune up your skill of observation? Well, here's a little exercise. Go someplace where your customers or your prospects hang out. In my case, we were doing a project on a new kind of a media platform, little tablet device, consumers. We flew a small team to New York, so it was not in Silicon Valley, and we basically walked into a Starbucks. And we started having interactions with customers. We watched how they, what kind of devices were they using sitting at the table, kind of snooping over their shoulders, what apps were they using, what were they so engrossed in, right? We watched everything they do in the process of using technologies in this particular example. In your case, watch your customers. Document it. Take pictures. I used to carry a little lav mic clipped to me, plugged into my phone, and I would just continuously chatter like I was talking to myself. What I was really doing was verbalizing what it is I was observing. And then what I have found is when I'm doing these kinds of observations, keep your eyes open for two things. Anything that impacts time and anything that impacts money. Because in 80% of the big innovations have some big element of time and money, and in some cases, it's both. The example I use is the microwave oven. Right? My mom would have never been the person to say, I need a microwave oven. But when she saw one and she saw how much time it was going to save out of her cooking in the kitchen, she had to have one. Why? Because it gave her back 20, 30 minutes of her day to go do something that she was more interested in doing than sitting in the kitchen. So in this case of observation, go where your customers are hanging out, watch everything they do, and if they'll allow you, follow them. In this example in New York, we actually met random people in a Starbucks, told them what we were doing, had a little conversation with them, and they actually invited us back to their apartments where we could do these observation studies, watch their family for the day, see what they interact, what kind of, what shows do they watch, how do they interact with the technology in their home, what's on their bookshelves, etc. That ability to really watch your customers and get practiced at picking out those things and ask yourself, what am I looking at that has an impact on time or that has an impact on money? By just focusing on those two key things at the beginning of trying to relearn your observation skills or to refine your observation skills, will reveal to you things that you just never had seen before. So the skill of observation is absolutely critical to your creativity. And get out there, find where your customers and prospects are hanging out. Do those observation skills and ask yourself, What is it they're doing that has a time or money issue for it? And so we're going to continue our discussions on kind of those little tricks and things that I do around improving my own personal creativity. And we'll continue this discussion right after this break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Before we hop back into this segment, I want to just thank our sponsor, Zoom. We've been using Zoom here in the studio for over a year. That's how we bring the guests in when we do interviews here in the studio. But also, I've been using Zoom every day for over a year. I mean, every day with my team, which is scattered out all over the world. We've been using Zoom literally from the early days of when Zoom first came out. Zoom now has turned into being one of the fastest growing applications on the internet. It is the best by far video collaboration system. Your ability to talk to your teams, 1 to 50, 1 to 500 people simultaneously is just unbelievable. The audio quality is fantastic, and the ability to do collaboration and sharing, which I use a lot, is second to none. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks this. Gartner recently awarded it into the Magic Quadrant of one of the best video collaboration technologies out there. And I guess one of the unique observations I've made about this is I've used all tools over the years, but Zoom is the first video collaboration technology that doesn't suck. So give it a try. Hop on over to killerinnovations.com/Zoom, where you can get a free account where you can interact with up to 50 people simultaneously. Yes, a free account that you can go out and interact with up to 50 people simultaneously. So go on over, killerinnovations.com/Zoom, and support our sponsors. And check it out. You will not regret it. Now, what is the most valuable creative tool that I use? What is the one thing that you can use today and have immediate impact on improved creativity? And that is questions. Now, for those of you who are longtime listeners, you're probably going to the, oh my gosh, I should have guessed this, right? Because my entire methodology, what I've built up over the years, my personal ability, is the ability to use questions. And that's not just any questions. These are really simple questions that are open-ended and that cause you to look at whatever the opportunity is in front of you in a unique and different way. Now, why questions? Questions have a unique power. If I ask you a question, you cannot stop yourself from answering it. Your brain engages, you immediately try to answer it, you get a little distracted thinking of the answer, and then you're back listening. So if I ask you, the question of, what did you have for dinner last night? Your brain's off thinking, right? Now you've come up with your answer. Now you can't answer me directly because I can't hear you, but your brain engaged and you went off to create the answer. So if you create and form well-defined kinds of questions, you can engage you and other people, teams, brainstorming sessions, whatever. You can engage their thinking with a question that causes them to go, whoa, I don't know the answer to that. Or, whoa, I got to think about that. I don't know the answer. I don't know. I don't have the information. Or, wow, I didn't look at it that way before. Those are the magic questions. The ones that cause you to basically kind of stutter and step back and cause you to have to really think about it, or it triggers a whole bunch of ideas in an area that you just never thought about. The way to think about this is questions are the fuel to improve observation. As I said in the observation skill set, you want to look at things that are time and money. So think about some questions that are time or money related. Like one of my favorite questions around money is what would it take to reduce the cost of this product by 50%, 50? Now that's a hard problem. Hard problem in the industries that I've been in over my career. So it causes you to kind of have to stop and completely throw out all your assumptions. You know, it's easy to say, how do I reduce it 5% or 10%? But here's the question that says, how do I reduce the cost? 50%. Like, whoa, I got to think about that one. I haven't thought about it. What I have found is to think about questions that are open-ended, that challenge assumptions. That unique characteristics, open-ended, meaning you can't answer it with a yes or a no or a simple fact, such as, what was the year when Columbus came to the United States? Or what was the year the Declaration of Independence was signed? Or what was the year of the start of World War II? Right? You can't. Those are simple facts. Closed questions, yes or no. Do you feel okay today? Yeah. Did you get the lawn cut? No. What you're looking for instead is open-ended questions that challenge assumptions. That causes you to have to throw out everything in the back, that you know historically, and then move forward and look at it in a unique and different way. So my most valuable creative tool is asking questions. And if you sat down and really put some time into creating just 5 questions, when you're faced with a unique challenge or you're trying to come up with a new idea, sit down and really think of 5 questions. Or you can hop on over to Killer Innovations and just search for killer questions. There's hundreds of them in the back catalog of the shows and all that. Pick out some of those questions and then ask yourself to try and challenge yourself to answer those. That's the easiest way to unlock your creativity without having to do any long set of exercises over days or weeks or months. You can ask questions today and you'll immediately unlock that creativity. So before we wrap up today's show, I just want to remind everybody we're coming up on season 13, March 5th. We have a contest going on. If you share on social media the innovation that you are most excited about or multiple innovations, post them on your social media and use the hashtag #KillerInnovation. All one word, hashtag #KillerInnovation. We will pick the winner on the March 5th show. You get to come on to Killer Innovations and tell your innovation story. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Hop on over to Killer Innovations. Check out the show notes. We'll have all the information there. And as you go out for this week, don't let the innovation antibodies get you down. Keep on innovating, and we'll see you here next week.